Guys, quick, you only have 7 seconds to leave a like and subscribe to reveal the true ending of Season X within Fortnite Battle Royale. Do you want to be gifted a free skin from the item shop?
Yes.
Well, simply make sure you subscribe to the channel with the post notification bell turned on and comment your epic game ID down below, letting me know also what you'd like to receive in terms of a gift off me. We're also getting so close to 750,000 total subscribers, so everybody watching the video right now, if you're not subscribed, hit the big red button and you potentially also could be the 750,000 subscriber. Want me to send even bigger and better things to more of you guys whilst also supporting me? Well, simply make sure to use code FriendlyMachine in the item shop. Let me know also in the comment section if you're rocking the code and your Epic Games ID, that way I can hook some of you guys up with some V-Bucks. Yo, what's going on guys, and welcome back to a brand new Fortnite Battle Royale video. So today, considering we're only 18 days left remaining until the end of this season, Season X, I figured considering also we haven't seen a live event unfold yet, determining what this season has been building up to all along, to make purpose or sense of everything that's happened in terms of map changes, that we'd go over everything to expect in the upcoming days for when this live event happens and ultimately what's going to happen in it, and even when it's going to happen in terms of an exact date. So you guys can then mark on your calendars when this is going to be happening to hopefully have the time off whatever you're doing to witness this live within the game, because believe me, Season X is going to go out with a huge bang. Before we get into any of that though, make sure you're simply sticking around to watch the full thing to get all of this information so you understand everything upcoming, and now let's get straight into it. The first thing we're going to be mentioning, ultimately if you guys aren't aware of what's going on or why these developments have been made at Dusty, in case you haven't landed there or played Fortnite in the past 2 weeks or week or so, there is a new purpose behind the Visitor's Warehouse, which we know is belonging to the Visitor anyways because of creative and what it's titled, of not making rift beacons, but seemingly recreating what he tried to in Season 4, a rocket which he successfully launched. We can not only tell this because of the parts added to Dusty Depot, whether inside or outside, to ultimately take it to new heights exceeding the roof limit, but we also have new information in the files added recently to determine what's going to be built here is ultimately the exact same identical rocket, and data miners have also managed to pull these threads into the game from the file and the coding, and basically it shows this. The fully complete identical rocket that we previously saw launch in Season 4. This is kinda strange, however, considering we've also seen the reappearance of it after disappearing in Season 4 in the Season X trailer. So does this mean there's going to be 2 rockets this season, and maybe a collision of the 2, creating a big huge explosion, more so than we've ever seen before in terms of map damage? I guess we're yet to know. Now that everybody's fully up to date on what's physically going on in-game that we can see anyways, developing more so every day, let's hop into when this event's going to be unfolding, because it's inevitable that the rocket is going to be made to launch as the previous Visitor did, considering now we have a new Visitor called the Scientist, who is also one of 7, just like the Visitor. We sadly don't know as of now who the other 5 are out of the 7, but obviously they play some sort of importance in the storyline or in Season X towards its end, considering it's been mentioned that there are 7 of the Visitor's kind. What we do know, however, which is a real game changer, is when this event is actually going to happen. So obviously if we take a look at prior live events, they've only ever occurred on a Saturday toward the end of a season. And considering we only have 18 days remaining of this season's full duration Season X left now, that only leaves a handful of Saturdays left for this to occur on, being 2 to be exact. The 21st of September is a Saturday, and the 28th of September is also the last Saturday of the season. It's very clear that this event will be happening on the 28th, considering we haven't seen any countdown timer or finalization for something to then occur with a countdown timer starting in our Fortnite island right now, to ultimately alert all players in-game when playing that something's going to be happening when that timer ends, considering not everybody follows Fortnite across social media. Many players may be thinking, well, we could have a countdown timer implemented in the upcoming days, counting down until the 21st at a certain time when something unfolds, but we typically usually see a 7 whole day countdown before said event occurs, to obviously then alert as many people as possible playing the game that something is going to be happening on that date, because obviously the longer the timer is in the game glowing in the sky above what's going to be happening, the more people will be attending. Considering also the scale of this event, how big it's going to be ultimately, which we're going to be getting into how we know this in just a second, and also Also, the fact that every live event is usually directly linked to what happens in the cinematic trailer. For example, last season with the Nexus Orb appearing after the final showdown, then exploding in the Season X trailer, this would ultimately make sense to come on the latest Saturday possible of the season, closest toward its end, and then the start of Season 11 being the 28th of September 2019. So make sure to mark that on your calendars right now for when the live event will be unfolding in-game, usually at 7 PM GMT. With everybody being aware now of all the possible dates of which this live event could then unfold on in-game for everybody to witness and see, let's hop into what's going to be happening when this countdown timer ends in-game, presuming there is one from following the traits of prior seasons. So obviously, it's very clear by now at surface value of looking at Season X that anything is possible to come back through an ulterior time or dimension in terms of any event. For example, more specifically what we're going to be focusing on here, Kevin the Cube's floating island form. This literally disintegrated into pieces upon its explosion in the butterfly event, but now is fully intact, obviously from a parallel universe or Fortnite realm. With this floating island making a return powered by the cube, many people haven't thought too much of it in terms of its ties to the storyline or map changes, or ultimately the development of the map changes and the storyline, considering it seems to be taking a hiatus around the Fortnite island and going to random spots and not doing anything. But what if I told you this cube will be exploding yet again, just like it did originally in Season 6 for the butterfly event? Believe it or not, this is going to be happening in whatever way it does, whether it's to trigger the live event, whether it's happening during the live event as consequence of something else happening, and we know this not because of the game's files, but because of replay mode. Obviously in my replay mode right now you can't see any form or indication of the cube cracking to then explode, but somebody actually managed to go into replay mode, and sometimes on the very rare occurrence it can literally show us what's upcoming in terms of changes or developments in our map, and that's exactly what it did for this guy here, showing cracks of the cube yet again in Season X. The fact in itself that this will be exploding again for another butterfly event is very interesting, but ultimately the more interesting part of this is the outcome of what the butterfly event entailed. Obviously in the first butterfly event we saw a complete transformation to Loot Lake, literally acting like the rift beacons we've been seeing transforming an entire named location. With us knowing that the cube is going to explode, and with the previous context of the cube's explosion entailing the complete transformation of a named location, we know that this is going to be happening yet again wherever the cube explodes. Obviously many people may argue this statement here or theory, saying that everything pulled back through this ulterior dimension shown in the Season X trailer is ultimately not what it once was, but obviously from looking into the files also for confirmation on this butterfly event happening again, all butterfly event files, as you can clearly see, have been added back, as well as some cube sounds and the cube island files themselves. The other thread of files in this tweet, all Catus and Dogger's files added back, ultimately can determine or point toward the cube's actual purpose upon its explosion. Obviously off the context that we know that things can be literally transformed through time or a dimension upon the cube's explosion wherever it happens, if this were to apply over the carcass or skeleton remains of the Polar Peak monster, being codenamed Catus and Doggus being the codename for the robot, this event unfolding in itself as part of the live event could reverse time in this particular location, reviving through time the Polar Peak monster, or bringing back through a different dimension another of the Polar Peak monster's kind. For example, exactly what happened because of a rift beacon with the floating island after it exploded that nobody ever thought we'd be seeing again. With the reappearance of the Polar Peak monster once wanting to harness the energy of the Nexus Orb for unknown reasons, obviously the robot was made to try and stop this because the inhabitants of the island knew it would be disastrous if the Polar Peak monster did harness this energy. With that said, will Singularity fly back down from escaping in the robot to the moon to then defeat the Polar Peak monster once and for all one more time, but not only that, maybe perhaps stop all of this destruction going on with the rocket and obviously this frozen in time meteor by reversing somehow everything that's gone on during Season X. Obviously everything's not determined so far, but with these files being added back to the game, it's safe to say that these events will be occurring again, just like the rocket event that's obviously being now constructed by the scientist. And speaking of the scientist and the visitor, definitely expect them to be making an appearance or contribution largely during this live event. It's not determined, despite them being one of 7 ultimately the same kind, that their intentions are of the same interest. These two characters could literally be facing off against each other or ultimately enemies. It's safe to say if you thought the final showdown event was big, well, we've seen nothing yet. with a mixture of live events, obviously from previous seasons, reoccurring or being revived for one major live event where they all occur at the same time to end off Season X. The final thing to mention in this video in itself is the LTM, which will be implemented obviously hours before this event actually happens. And here is a concept that I've used in the thumbnail of today's video, considering, as previously mentioned and proven, all live events included in this thumbnail could be making a reappearance based off not only what's teased in the game in replay mode throughout glitches like the cube, but also what's contained in the files. Anyways, with that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure you're leaving a like in it down below. If you also want to keep up to date with the latest map developments and more progression into the future in terms of what's going to be happening during this live event, then make sure you're subscribing to the channel with the post notification bell turned on. Hopefully I can recognise you guys in the comment section of my future videos to come, and I'm out. Have an amazing rest of your day or night wherever you are, whenever you're watching. Have a good one, take it easy, and as always, peace.